Hi, welcome back. So we are in Chapter 3 HCCV01 project at the outline workflow of the project. I hope now you have enjoyed the background music while the GUI design was taking place using the Qt designer. Now, basically, the essential design, as you can see, is a passive design. So if I would have to go to preview here, I could see that my design is ready and good, even unable to move to the second page unless I get back to the QStack widget page here and I make a change order of the page. Form and preview, I could see now this is the other page, which is the view case. So we have a view, add case, everything is ready. Now our job is to make this active application. Before I show you how we're going to start and connect things all together as we have planned, I'd like to inform you this design is XML design. This is very important to recognize. In fact, the code looks just like this. So this is the UI. And what we need to do actually to convert this into Python, where this become our main window. What we're going to do now, this is my main class, okay, which is actually going to outcome the GUI to the client. What is this main class? It should actually, after we of course convert the .ui, the XML file, into a Python code, which we're going to discuss in a while how to do that, plus of course the icons, because inside the interface there are some icons there. For example, I have imported the logo, I have imported some images or something like that. So we need also to look for the icons and convert these also to .py, which is later actually this main folder py will have to import this icons into a form of a py. So these are two important steps that have to be familiar to you if you are using PySide or Qt in general. Now let's get back to the main idea. Now this is my main class, and the idea here, what we want our main class to have access to the UI. Don't forget this UI now is a py, so we will import it as an independent class, and then our main class will be operating to be the connectors of any interaction with the interface. So if the client actually have access to the UI, request anything or click anything on this interface, the main class, as it's now the Q application, it's loaded on the memory, understand every widget on that interface, it understand the signal. So when the client click this button will actually have a name, as we have named most of the important buttons that will be operated, the list widgets, etc., etc. So when the client click, for example, a button, the main application, as it is now loading, it recognizes that, and it will connect this click to a certain signals, and these signals will be nothing but a function. Actually, it says, well, if this is clicked, I want you to trigger this function. So a certain function will be triggered, say F1 for example, and this F1, it's actually connected to the backend. Now I will have here in the backend number of modules. Each one of them is responsible for something. So I am suggesting here, and this is the way I like to operate, when I start, I create number of modules. Now in this first application, I use much more primitive way of putting things together. It's really a homemade application. So what do I mean with modules? As we have explored in Python from the appendix in the third book, we saw that if I want to create this to be a module in itself, it's actually a folder essentially. Let's say this is a DB folder, database. So everything inside this folder will be responsible to handle anything in relation with the database. And the first thing to make this recognizable by Python as a module, we need to create __ init empty file. Either you make it empty, or as we have explored before, you can of course essentiate number of the classes that if you import this, they will be already imported. Instead of like when you import, you don't have to specify name, so they will be already there. Anyway, this is technicality. You have to go and check out what we have been discussing. But what I want to say that every folder of these modules will be recognized if we actually create this init inside that DB. So Python now recognizes DB as a module. And inside that, we will create now number of .by files. Now, every one of these by might be responsible for something. For example, I could create here inside database, say db main, okay, something like that. Now, what is inside this db main? Maybe it's gonna be responsible to create the database. And inside each one of them, of course, they class. And as you know that the class should follow a capital letter. So here we'll have a main class for DB, for example. It has number of functions. Same here, it has number of functions, etc. And basically what will happen, as I said, well, this function will have an access to the database. I need to recall something from the database. So inside the function here, in the main class, when I clicked, I trigger function one. Function one is actually still inside the main class, okay, the main class here. And inside this function, I'm saying, well, I want you to import or to have access to this module, DB, create an instance from this particular class, for example, and this particular class will let you have access to its internal function. So that function, for example, is going to create a database. Same thing you can do with some other module. So the style of organizing the structure, it's very, very important. And that's why in this image here, what the style looks like. This is the way I like to organize my work, and I will leave it for you if you would prefer some other methods. Essentially, you have really to understand the mechanism of PySide, how it works throughout signals and event, as we have explained earlier before. Now, let's get back to the first task. Going to import this .ui, which is going to be inside the same main folder. So I will create a module here called UI. It has init inside, and then this UI will contain the following folders. Number one, it will have the UI design, it will have the icons, it will have the folder of those icons. We will have to take this and convert it to a py. So this will be a new file, .py, the UI, the main UI. Also, the icons will be also convert into py. So we need icons to be converted to py. Now, how to do that? This is an important thing to recognize. So this is my HCC v1 main project. If I open this one, this is the skeleton. As we said before, the CLI will have only one line of code, which is very, very important. It says, I want you to go to the main folder, which is this guy here, HCCV01, and I want you to go to the main py file and import this function called main. If the name is main, I want you to go find this function called the main. Now, where is this main? Where is this? It's located inside the HCCV01. Now, inside HCCV01, you could see here the number of modules we were talking about. So I have created a module called actions, assets, database, and modules, UI, and another folder called value cases, etc., that contains some images actually. And of course, the HCC itself, it should be considered to be a module. That's why I was saying from HCCV01. That's why it recognizes it as a module. Why? Because it has this empty init py. And this is the main, the underscore main. Now, what is inside main? The main function basically does nothing special, but by creating only one function. If you remember, we said we need an application and we need window. I have explained the previous sessions what does that mean. So we need only one application. That Q application will be operating as the app, which is going to be actually carrying the entire application. Now, where is our main window? We need to access to main window from somewhere. Either we actually inherit the main window or Q main window directly, which is not the proper way, as we said. That's why we went to Qt Designer, we did our application. And then, of course, you're gonna set the exit from the Q application. all this information should be familiar with. This is the main things that the main is doing. So the main file says, give me a main window, and the main window will be imported from a certain module within the same file. Now, which modules here is going to be responsible for the GUI? As we said, I like to create this module called UI. Now, what is inside UI? Now, first of all, inside the UI, I have number of files here. I have here the icons SVG, which contain all the images, the icons actually the application is relying on. I have, of course, don't forget, I'm not going to keep repeating that, the init.py. And now I have this a QRC for the icons, and I have the UI main design. So these are, even the icons are quite a bit different. See, they are not py files. So the UI view at ccvo1.ui, it is what actually the name of this file here. You could see this at ccvo1.ui. Now basically I have this, imagine, without any other files, and I have the icons QRC. Both of them is created already while I was doing my design. Now this QRC, as you could see the form, again, it's in XML, and this is my XML for the main design. How can I convert this into PY? Now this is where we need external library. And what is the name of this external library? It's called the PySide6-UIC. Now, this library, you need to make sure it is installed, which is, I think, by default will be there if you install PySide 6. Now, PySide 6-UIC responsible to do two important things. Actually, it runs directly on the terminal. So what you have to do, you have to reach out inside the terminal, inside the UI, where you have the entire, the main window of this HCCV01. You reach there, and on the terminal, just you have to write PySide6-UIC, write the name of the window, which is actually this .ui, and -o, which indicate output this file, the XML, into whatever name you like, .py. The same thing, you use the same exact library, but instead of UIC, you will use RCC. Now, RCC, basically, it takes all the icons. So basically, it says, give me the icons, which have to be with the path of QRC. The first one was UI. Output that into whatever name you like, .py. These are the two important things that you have to consider. You can do this directly on the terminal. However, there's a small challenge that sometimes you might encounter or run into. Imagine I have done my design and everything, and suddenly I have decided to change the name of one of the labels here, or maybe add even a new buttons or whatsoever. Now, once this is done, you have to consider that this UI now saving the changes, but in our new file, the py that we have just output has nothing to do with it. So we need to run again one more time. In every change we make on the main window, the .ui, we have to go back. So it turns out that every time I make a change, I have to come back to the terminal and do the exact same procedure. That's why I have come with an idea, and this is preference again, to create a script. I call it update UI. What this script do, nothing special. Basically, it tried to execute exactly what I was saying. So it called the OS, or the operating system library, and it called the system to execute this on the terminal. Now I did this, and it was outputting exactly as expected. Every time I just, instead of writing these individually, I was just have to access from a different terminal to this update UI. I just say Python update UI, click, here we go. I should be able to see the update of the actual progress. However, there's a small problem happened that inside the new UI window.py, the one I am outputting by converting the interface into a Python, it was import icons RC, but the structure of my folder doesn't recognize to import icons RC directly. I should have used the dot or from the root, because the icon RC is inside a module. So you have to consider, depends on your design. That works if this is only all of which inside just one folder and the whole operation within it. So anyway, I hope you get the point here. So I needed to actually alter the UI window, this guy here, by saying, please just change the way you created this. Go ahead and make search for this line inside the script, and I want you to change this with this. That's exactly what I did. So this is with open. You just read the file and pick up the search of this text and replace it with this and output again. And here we go. After you do that, I want you to print for me, tell me everything went okay. So this is once again a way I prefer to work as a script, so everything will be encapsulated here and make it easy for me to operate and faster. So anytime, get back here, make the change, then get back to my workflow in Visual Code, create a new terminal, which is going to be just only responsible to actually reach out to the update UI as a singular script. So I could write just Python update UI run, and it will make the changes for me. All right. Once we do that, I will have two new files. The first one, I will have UI window.py, which is actually this guy here, the first one we output, and I will have another one called iconsrc.py. So what is inside this UI main window? This is the code represent this interface. Every name here, it has a meaning, and now I can literally access to the property of that widget throughout the name here. Okay, this is very important to visualize first of all. Now this is done. I have this guy, which is going to be my main window. In other words, now we will create a class, we'll call it main window, and we'll import this to load as our main window. Okay, we need now to create the main class, as we said. That's why I've just created here a simple basic one. It's called main class. You should be familiar now. We created before main class. So this Q main class is gonna inherit the Q main window. If you remember, the Q main window, as we said, it's a bundle and it has a lot of functionality. We're not gonna use any of its own function, just as a main window holder. And inside that, we want to start to put the widget, the labels, as we said. Now, since we have already created all of which, and they are actually here inside the UI window, what I want to do, I want to tell this main class, which is inheriting the Q main window, in its instructor. As you remember, after I say, well, this is going to be a Q main window, and I want you to call it as a super. Now, this line, as we said, important because this will be actually recognized by PySide to act correctly, and consider this is the only Q main window. All right. Now, watch carefully what happens here. I defined an individual variable here called UI. You could call it anything you like from the self. And this is going to be an instant of this UI main window. So what is this UI main window? Well, since I am inside the same exact library here, I said the from.UI window, which is going to be this guy, the one I just output here. I want you to import everything. Actually, inside here, there is everything is nothing but only one class. This class here, only one class, which is called the UI main window, that hold the entire design we've been working on. And now from that instance, I want, since the instance in there, I want you to reach to this function called setup UI, and then pass the self, the Q main window, carry that design. So this two line are immediately important to be recognized. This is the workflow or the style how PySides work. After you do that, actually, if you now run the CLI, it will go to the main, and this guy will be calling then the UI essential window file, and inside the essential window we are just carrying the window. I hope this flow chart is quite clear to you. Take your time, go back again and try on your own, try to follow, and you have to understand that really, because if you miss, then your application will be disconnected and you will have hard time. And once you're done, now I can access any widget I like here inside, labels, buttons, list widget, whatever we created, I can access them. So this is the way we connect actually to the main window. Now, one style of preference, I like, for example, to set my window flag. I want the Qt to be frameless, so I don't want the upper head. I want to send, for example, a liquid background to make the background quite a bit transparent. For example, there are two buttons, if you remember, in the main design, this button here and this button here. So this button was to close and this button was to minimize. So if you look at the names, close window button and minimize window button. So basically here, if I said, well, I want you to go to the UI, which is an instance of the main window, go to the close window button. This is the name that we named there. If you have a click on it, I want you to connect to this function. Now, this function is a built-in Lambda function, which is going to be called just self-close. So close the queue application, kill the loop. That's what it does. Now, if you click on the minim window button clicked, connect to the show minimize. So these are essential when I start an application. And finally, I also did something much more interesting, actually, by connecting these two buttons. Now, if you click here, I want you to go to the view page. If you click here, I want you to go to the app page. So basically here I said, well, I want you to go to the view case button. I want you to connect to a function. And what this function does, actually, it's a Lambda function. Later we will have, of course, to expand. We will not be writing this on Lambda on one line. We will be creating a lot of function down there. So basically here I say, well, if this is clicked, I just connect to Lambda. Lambda, it does what it does, nothing special. It go again to the UI, the instance of the main class, go to a stack widget. This is my stack widget. Like the name I have chosen stack widget, could be any other name, which is actually a Q stack widget. That's why I like to be sensitive with my name, so it's easy for me to remember. So this is the stack widget. Okay, go to it, and after that, I want you to reach to this function called set the current widget, and then set the name of that page that I want, the view case page. This is the view case page. This is add case page. So these are basically the two pages inside the stack widget. So that's exactly what happens here. Set the current widget to be view, or if I click it, I set to be add. That's it. So this is an essential just to show you how to load the main application. And finally, of course, we need to call the self.show to show the actual window. Now, if I would have to hit back here to the main HCC folder, every time we need to run this application, we will just access to the CLI. Basically, I could just say, well, Python CLI.py. That's all. And if you actually click, here we go, we have our application up and running. If you click on the page view, these are responding because, as we said on the main application, if I click here, I connect to signals and I trigger the function, which actually gonna move me here to this page. If I clicked here, it does the same by reaching out to the list widget and connect me to this page here. And this to close the app and kill the loop. That's it. I hope now this UI modules are quite clear to you on what are the elements within it. Now, what we want to do, we want to create the other modules, and be careful, as we said, this main window will be talking to the background. Now, this is my connection between the GUI interact by the user and between the backend. It's done. We have established the main framework for this guy here, the main window. Now, let's go ahead and start to look inside the modules that we are interested in. First of all, let's go and work on the database. What kind of a design we are looking at? That's exactly what we're going to do next. I will see you then.